Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to day two of the kickoff the International Mandela Effect Conference. We are so very, very excited to have every last one of you guys here. What great interviews this morning already with Mr. Moneybags and Miss Eileen Close. We will both hear from here shortly. Guys, before we get started, we have a couple things that we must go through. First, we have a disclaimer. The content you are about to watch is meant for thought and consideration. Please be respectful of each other and opinions shared. This is a safe space to express thoughts, ideas, and information. The views and opinions expressed by the individuals in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of every speaker or of the IMEC organization or its affiliates. I will repeat this last line. The views and opinions expressed by the individuals in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of every speaker or of the IMEC organization or its affiliates. Now that we've got the legal stuff out of the way, guys, let's get down to some rules and let's have some fun. First rule, of course, is be respectful. Disagreements are okay. Disrespect is not. Put any questions that you may think of in the chat. Remember, we have the question contest where you can win a free book. Two people will win a free book at the end of today. So do make sure that you're putting those questions into the chat, but please do not spam the questions into the chat. For those who don't know, spamming is putting the same thing in the chat over and over and over and over, and that will not be tolerated or allowed. If a question is spammed, the question will automatically be disqualified from the contest. We have many moderators that are watching for the questions that are being pulled up, so worry not. Your question will be seen. Trolls will not be accepted here and will be banned immediately upon trolling. This is a family-friendly venue. Please, no cussing. And make sure everything stays clean and very family friendly. And last but not least, do please try to stay on topic as much as possible. I know everybody is excited about everything going on. I have no problem talking about, random things. Just let's try to stay as much as possible on topic. That is all the rules, ladies and gentlemen. And last but not least, there is one more rule, and that is please have an amazing, wonderful, and thought-provoking time. Before we continue, I would like to shout out our board members and all of those who have worked so very, very hard behind the scenes to make this happen. People like Cynthia Sue Larson, the president of the IMEC organization, and the vice president, Mr. Christopher Anatra. There's also the treasurer, Mr. Jerry Darkwolf Hicks. Oh, wait a minute, that's me. I guess it is. And there is Kimberly Lynn Hansen, as well as Lauren Cannell Pavelka. In all fairness, Kimberly Lynn Hansen is considered a consultant of the board, but in my eyes will always be a member of this board. Also, we would like to give a huge, huge shout out to our video crew. They were with us last year in Ketchum, Idaho, and they continue to bring you guys this amazing and professional event this year. This is the Frontline Productions, not to be confused with Frontline Television. This is two separate companies. Frontline Productions are the ones that have brought you such amazing commercials and amazing video quality for this and all the events that we have done. So huge, huge shout out and sincere thanks to Frontline Productions for all the help you have given us. Another person who does not get enough credit, guys, went over to our website, imec.world, more times, I'm sure, than I can count. And yet, we don't think about all the amazing hard work that went into creating that thing. So, Fitz, our webmaster, has done a 100% amazingly incredible job. Yesterday, he had his work cut out for him. Yesterday, day before on Saturday, he had his work cut out for him. And let me tell you, he did wonderful. And he's continued to do wonderful and keep everything updated. He does a incredible job. I don't give him credit enough, ladies and gentlemen. Our webmaster Fitz, 100% shout out. We so very much appreciate it. We also appreciate our amazing sponsors, conscious life news, the Rippin' Rabbit Hole Rippin' Common Sense Radio, Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks, and the Kingdom of Nye Radio Network with Heather Wade over there. We appreciate you guys helping us out this year with advertising and sponsorship and everything you've done to get the word out and help us along the way. It is very, very sincerely appreciated from the bottom of every one of our hearts here at IMEC. I also want to thank the chat and every one of you being here today. It is absolutely amazing to see so many people already here, and the day is only just beginning. Guys, we have one more thing to shout out, and that is our super chats. We have had quite a few super chats already. If you would like to donate, we are a 501c3 non-for-profit organization, which isn't entirely true because they say nobody profits. There is somebody that profits, and that is you guys. You guys in the community are the ones who profit from everything we do. So any money gained during this or any event or any money donated always goes back into the community and doing events and doing everything we can to bring things together and really do these thought-provoking events and conferences and educational ideas and all the wonderful things we're able to do to help out this community or this community of this community from people who have a passion about it. And there are some super chats, like I said, from the first show. We have Earth Daughter with a $44.44 super chat. Thank you so very much. Feminine with a running total so far of $7. Melinda Iverson coming in with a huge $49.99. Thank you so very sincerely, Melinda. Dark Slayer coming in with $5. Thank you. Victoria Macris asked a super chat question on Saturday with a $20 super chat. Esteban Herdez, $2. And I do apologize. I hope I got that name right. Eric Mill coming in this morning with $11.25. Thank you so very much, everybody. It is so very, very sincerely appreciated by every last one of us here at the IMEC organization. And once again, we are a 501c3 not-for-profit that puts all donations back right into the community. So you guys actually profit from everything. Don't forget, we have 2 contests running during this conference. That's right, we have 2 contests. You guys know about the question contest. Make sure you get those questions coming in as these speeches go today and these speakers go. We can't wait for these amazing Q&As we're going to have later. We will be having moderators watching the chat the entire time. These will be judged on accuracy of the question, whether or not it is spam. Remember, that will get it disqualified. Relevance of the question, the thought-provoking amount of the question, and last but not least, a final team judgment. So there's no one person that gets to choose anything. It is a team decision to make it absolutely fair. Also, moderators, if you will please drop the thetastream.app link right now, I'd appreciate that. The thetastream.app, for those who don't know, is Akranos Mago's site where he is offering cash prize contest at the end of this amazing conference. All you got to do is go over there and do the intuition games or maybe the random number generator games. For more information, definitely go back to day 1 and Akranos Mago's talk, and he will explain all of that. Coming up today, guys, we have an incredible schedule. As if every day isn't, this one is great. Guys, we've got the number 1 well-known person in the community, Mr. Evan Matraia, also known as Moneybags, with his Mandela Effect journey, as well as the Q&A afterwards. Following that, we will have the Cosmic Revelations in the ME by Eileen Colts, as well as her Q&A. We will then take a 1-hour dinner break. Everybody has a chance to get up, walk around, move around, go get some dinner, and come on back in 1 hour for the second half of day 2, where we will have Revelations in Mandela Effect Changes by Shane Robinson, a Q&A with Shane, and then an incredibly big panel, the members of which we will announce as we get close to the end of the day. You know, Evan, Eileen, and Shane will definitely be on there, but we might have some special editions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the discussion that we're going to have today. So I would like to welcome and thank everybody for being here for the day 2 opening of the Mandela Effect conference. Coming up, we have the first talk. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Evan Matraia, Moneybags 73. Evan is one of the leading Mandela Effect researchers on YouTube. Though his YouTube channel has produced nearly 600 Mandela Effects videos and amassed over 1 million views, he's the creator of the incredible Mandela Effect voting video series. Sometime in the mid-90s, Evan was presented with a book called The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. From this point forward, he had a different perception of reality and began to research many different types of metaphysical topics. He was also fascinated by the Mayan calendar and believed that the end of it was not the end of the world, but actually a transition period for humanity that was prophesied by ancient cultures. A few years prior to becoming aware of the Mandela Effect, Evan had made a few videos on his YouTube channel pertaining to a coming shift in human consciousness, expansion of awareness, and although he didn't know how it would materialize, his intuition led him to a phenomenon that would change his life forever. That really sounds like a lot of us finding a phenomenon that's changed our life forever. He started his Mandela Effect journey when his son brought forth a few simple questions to him in March of 2016. After researching this astonishing idea, he transformed his financial channel that he had started in 2009 into a full-time Mandela Effect channel practically overnight. Ever since, he's been able to reunite a dedicated audience of over 41,000 subscribers who were on his incredible journey alongside him. In November 2019, Evan reached out to the host of the Art Bell Archive live show, which he ended up being interviewed on and now co-hosts a segment every month called Mandela Monthly, which I personally really enjoy, if I may say so myself. He is always sure to remind his viewers to go create the reality that you want. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, a man that I've had many hours of conversation with, a man that I am very proud to call a friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Evan Matraia, or Moneybags 73.
There is a river flowing now very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel they are torn apart and will suffer greatly. Know the river has its destination. The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river, keep our eyes open and our heads above water. And I say, see who is in there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment that we do, our spiritual growth and journey come to a halt. The time for the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves, banish the word struggle from your attitude and your vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. We are the ones we've been waiting for. This quote is attributed to a Hopi elder of the Oribe, Arizona Hopi Nation, and I thought that this was fitting, starting the discussion of my journey, which I'm going to start in 1998, that ultimately led to a realization of the Mandela Effect and beyond. So this is an incredible time in history to be alive, and I know that we're all at our own level of awakening and understanding, and during this expansion of awareness, we're all on an individual journey. So I'm going to share my journey today. When it comes to the Mandela Effect, the bottom line for me is that the Mandela Effect is part of a great awakening that the ancients knew was going to happen on Earth at this time. This was always going to happen. Thousands of years ago, ancient cultures prophesied this time in history for the Great Awakening. And I feel part of the Great Awakening. I feel that the Mandela Effect is part of a Great Awakening. And I believe that many of you sense this Great Awakening as well and are at a certain level of your own awakening and your own journey. So I want to share my personal journey of awakening that ultimately led to a realization of the Mandela Effect and an experience of it. So I'm going to give you what led up to it, experiencing the Mandela Effect, how it's changed my life, what it's made me understand, and then where I think that this is all headed. So I'd like to start in 1998. In 1998, my dad's girlfriend at the time gave me a book called The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. A book from several decades ago, at the beginning of the last century, actually. And so I credit this book as the beginning of a time where I started to see things differently. I started to look at my reality differently, and I learned that there's other ways of looking at things with a connectedness to everything around you. So I was mainly thinking of, working from the ego and thinking about myself and just going from there. I had somewhat of a religious upbringing, and so I had that perspective or programming, if you will. And I had the programming from school and, from my parents. And so we all see reality through this lens that we have that's created through the programming that we receive as little children. So an interesting way of looking at this is that I just pulled off the little key in the back and tossed it away and got out of line with everyone else that I was following and kind of thinking the same way, and had a new perspective, a different way of seeing life. So we move forward to 2001, and an awful event happens that changes the world as we know it and many of our lives and the way that I personally looked at reality. I started questioning, as I know many of you also did, I started questioning my reality. I call this my personal apocalypse because apocalypse comes from a Greek word, apocalypsis, which means an unveiling or an uncovering, a lifting of the veil. As you see this man here, he's seeing that there's another level. There's more beyond what he was able to see with his limited understanding and level of consciousness. So 2001 was really when my spiritual awakening, or just my expansion of consciousness awakening, kicked into high gear, and I really started questioning everything around me. We jump forward a few years to 2003, 2005 timeframe, and I wanted to buy a house. But I told my wife, we can't afford to buy a house. And she says, well, so-and-so bought a house, and I see different people buying homes, but to me, they were going to lose them because I didn't see how they could afford those homes. It didn't make sense. What I was seeing didn't make sense, but a lot of people that were involved in the housing market, they were going along with the greater fool theory. They were thinking that, well, there's going to be someone that'll purchase the house for me, and there'll probably be someone that'll purchase it from him. So it's just going to keep on going, and just wonderful, great times. My yearning to understand the bubble in the housing market that we were in the United States led me to the following two books: The Coming Crash in the Housing Market and How to Profit from the Coming Real Estate Bust. I read the books. They made total sense. I told people about the books, but no one wanted to believe me. No one wanted to believe that was what was coming. But it made total sense to me. And eventually, we know what happened and what led to the crash of 2008, the financial crash. But here, you have another expansion of consciousness, more awareness. This showed many people how things operate. The housing crash was what mainly led to this, but it was the banks. The banks were the ones giving all the home loans. Yes, the people were greedy, and I blame both parties, the people and the banks. But the banks were the ones coming up with all these crazy loans, negative amortization loans. Can't even say that, where they got all these crazy things they were coming up with at the time. I mean, you just had a heartbeat walking down the street. Here, you need a home loan. I mean, they had no doc loans. You didn't even have to show documentation. So anyway, ultimately, you see that the people lost their homes, a lot of people, to foreclosure. But the government stood up and they backed up the banks. They supported the banks. The banks have a lot of power, and they're not going to let the banks go under, so the banks can act in a certain way, but the person that's going to take the fall is going to be the average Joe on the street. So here you have another cartoon showing that the banks got a golden parachute, and The taxpayer or the average guy, he got an anvil to hold on to as they're flying through the sky. So it was a horrible deal for the average person. But thanks to those books, I didn't get involved. And ultimately, after 2008, I ended up buying my first home. So I also wanted to share this here. This Congressman Alan Grayson asked Ben Bernanke, which foreigners got the Fed's $500 billion? And Bernanke said, I don't know. I mean, how could this be? How could Bernanke not know who the United States is giving all this money to? And so now here we have another expansion of awareness about the Federal Reserve. Well, why is our Federal Reserve giving out $500 billion and they don't even know where it goes? Well, that doesn't make sense. So the truth of the matter is that they were lending to other central banks that were dealing it out to banks that were suffering during the financial collapse that happened. Because we have a central bank that is not part of the U.S. government. It's a quasi-U.S. government agency. And in 2009, I wanted to start telling people this. I didn't feel people knew this. I wanted to start informing them. I got on YouTube. I created the name Moneybags73 as a nickname of a family friend that used to call me that, but also because I wanted to talk about gold and silver and bags of physical, hard money, real money for thousands of years, not paper nothings, that aren't backed by anything. That's why you see George here. He's worried because the backing of the US dollar was taken away in 1971 by Nixon. He closed the gold window and countries could no longer turn in their dollars for gold. And so that's where we stand now. We have a Federal Reserve which is not federal, has no reserves, can act in secrecy, does what it wants, sets interest rates, doesn't allow for a free market. And this is who we have controlling the currency of our country. And so I was really worried about that, and I wanted to start telling people all I knew. So mainly the channel is concentrated on monetary policy, talking about the financials of the United States, how you can protect yourself with real money for thousands of years that always hold their value. I wasn't telling people how to get rich. This wasn't about driving Lambos and, becoming a rich guy. This was about protecting what you had. And so since I was on YouTube and I was talking about financial issues, I had a little platform and I could start talking about my other interests. And I was extremely interested in December 21st, 2012, the end of the Mayan calendar. An evolution of human consciousness that, was an incredible time. And I couldn't believe that, well, hey, here's this calendar that's been going for millennium, 20,000 years, and here it's going to be coming to an end. And Hollywood, of course, with their fear, was trying to make people think that it was the end of the world and all that stuff. I'm sure you remember those movies. But that's not what it was about. The Maya never said that it was the end. It was the beginning. It's the beginning of a new time, a time that we're in now. A shift of the ages, if you will. At the same time, I was studying the shift of the ages. The shift from Pisces into Aquarius. A time of believing into a time of knowing. It's a great shift that happens about every 2,160 years. And that's actually a shift that's part of a greater shift. And I'll be talking about that here in just a minute. I've highlighted this date, December 21st, 2012. And I want to discuss this for a little bit here. I think it's very important, ultimately leading up to the Mandela Effect and what we're experiencing now. But this was an incredible transition point. There's nothing that happened on this particular day, like Hollywood was trying to have you believe. This is a point of transition in an evolution of consciousness. And this is very important for where we're headed, in my opinion. So I made a short list here of some of the cultures and what they thought about this time. You have the Tibetan that have the Kalachakra teachings of the Wheel of Time that talked about December 21st, 2012. The Maya with the long count calendar that ended on this date. The Hopi that talked about the coming of the fifth world and the great time of purification on earth. Just look around, you can see there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of bad things happening. This is an incredible time in history, a kind of purification that the Hopi were expecting. The Hopi termed this time in history as we are the ones that we've been waiting for. This is going to be a time where we're going to be looking inward. Instead of looking outward for answers, we're going to be looking inward. This is a return to ourselves. The Peruvian shamans, the descendants of the Incas, talked about a time where reality is turned inside out and upside down, with the possible break between the spiritually awakened and those who are not awakened. Maybe that has something to do with the Mandela Effect. Those of us who can see the Mandela Effect and those of us who can't. Now, I think everyone can experience the Mandela Effect, but for some reason, there's those of us who are experiencing it to a much greater degree. And it's not necessarily known why that is. I mean, there's lots of theories, but we don't necessarily know. Maybe the Peruvian shamans had an insight into this from the information from the elders that was passed down. The descendants of the Incas had a prophecy of a Pachacute, what they call it. It's a time where the eagle and the condor will fly together again. They said that there'd be a period of 400 to 500 years of a dark time where the Spaniards came and the North and the South were separated, the indigenous peoples of North and South America. And there's a prophecy of a time when the eagle would fly together again with the condor. You can think of this in mental terms, where the eagle would represent the left hemisphere of the brain, the more analytical, thinking, masculine part of the brain, being the eagle representing the north, and the condor of the more feminine, softer energy, the artistic energy expressed in humans, in the right hemisphere of the brain. So they talk about this time as a time where the eagle and condor will fly together again in the sky. The melding of the left and right hemisphere of the brain into a more balanced unity consciousness, which ultimately is where I think this is all leading, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, so we'll just back off a little bit. The Hindus talked about the Kali Yuga cycle, the ending of the great year. This goes back to the shift of the ages. The 25,920 year cycle, which is achieved by moving through all 12 signs of the zodiac, consisting of each sign being 2,160 years. It's called the precession of the equinoxes. Now, we're coming to the end of the age of Pisces. And mind you, the precession of the equinoxes goes backward through the zodiac. So if you're familiar with the zodiac and how you move forward, it goes backwards. So the time of the age of Pisces is ending. And that's part of this great shift. But the entire 25,920 year cycle, the great year is ending. And the Hindus talked about this with the Kali Yuga cycle. This is an incredible time in history to be alive, everyone. So you have these different ages, and I hear from people, you mention the word age, and it triggers a lot of people. They don't like to hear that. Oh, you're new age. You're talking new age stuff. And well, the shift of the ages is nothing new. So I'm sorry if that triggers you, but it's very important, needs to be talked about, and it's ancient. It's not new. So before the age of Pisces, we had the age of Aries, the ram. And you had the Jews blowing the ram horn. You had this 2,160 year period. And that went along with a certain level of consciousness and an understanding. And before that, you had the time of Taurus, the bull. And you had bull gods all around the planet. You had different cultures that had bull gods. I failed to mention, during the time of Aries, the age of Aries, you had, in Egypt, you had the rams being used. So we move through these ages, and now we're moving into an age of Aquarius. It's a time of knowing. The time of believing is going away, and we're moving into a time of knowing. The Christians talk about this time with the Holy Bible. It's the apocalypse. It's the unveiling or the revealing. There's also a separation of the wheat from the chaff, talk about in the Bible. Is that what we're seeing? It appears to me that could be what we're seeing. Maybe that's what we're seeing with the Mandela Effect. With the separation of the wheat and the chaff, the people who can see it. I mean, I don't mean to say that there's anything wrong with people who can't see it. They're just not at a level of being able to see. They're not resonating with the frequencies that are happening on the planet. The frequencies of the planet, they're rising. The Schumann resonance is showing us that. And some of us are matching those frequencies, some of us aren't. So, this isn't putting anyone down. It's not trying to say that you're bad or, that there's anything wrong with you. We're all at our own level of awakening. This reminds me of Nikola Tesla, who said that if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of electricity, frequency, and vibration. And, that's pretty much where I'm headed as we move into looking past the Mandela Effect, or trying to understand it, and my understanding of it. So lastly here, I would like to mention that the Chinese have the I Ching, a book of prophecy or prediction, and Terence McKenna used that book to come up with a time wave zero theory, where novelty in the universe seemingly stopped on this date. So he has graphs where he talks about novelty throughout history. And he came up with this December 21st, 2012 date where, time kind of stops. So there's a theory with in the Mandela Effect community that 2012 was the end of the world, and it really did end. And that, I sort of felt that way when I first realized the Mandela Effect. It felt like it ended. And, we're in a new world now. So all theories, if you know me, all theories are on the table. I'm not going to say that time travel is not possible, couldn't have anything to do with the Mandela Effect. The simulation, holographic universe theory, all these different things, glitch in the matrix. Even, little demons controlled by Satan at quantum computers. I don't know, CERN. You got so many theories. And I've never said that any of them are wrong, because I don't know. And I'm not afraid to say I don't know. You have a lot of people trying to act like they do know. And to me, that's a little scary. But I don't claim to know. I'm sharing my journey with you, and I'm going to end up here pretty soon sharing what my favorite theory is. So 2012 came and went, and a lot of people are saying, see, nothing happened. But I think, it was just a transitional point. Nothing was supposed to happen. But things got really interesting after 2012. In 2014 through 15, as you can see here, we had a blood moon tetrad. Now, I wanted to share this from the Bible. Luke chapter 21, verse 25. And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, kind of a time that we're in. So God told us that there would be signs in the sun. An interesting thing with the Mandela Effect is that a lot of us have noticed that the sun is more of a bright white, which just recently is seeming to change again. But I'm not going to get into that now. But for the past 3 or 4 years, I've noticed a bright white sun. But thinking back to my childhood and earlier days, I don't remember a bright white sun. I remember a yellowish sun. Yellowish orangish, a calm sun. Now it's an intense white sun. So God here in Luke chapter 21 said there'll be signs in the sun. There'll be signs in the moon and in the stars. So this is just totally incredible time that we find ourselves in. And I was led to do research on this blood moon tetrad that I made a video on. Has almost 1 million views on my other channel, Shine the Light 73. So what this is 4 blood moons, which the blood moon tetrad here, this has happened about 62 times in the last couple thousand years. So it's not rare. It's, kind of rare, but it's only happened about 7 times where every single blood moon lands on a Jewish holy day, on Passover and Sukkot. I mean, this is incredible. It's only happened about 7 times since the time of Christ. So here we just had, there's not going to be another one for another 600 years. And here we just had a blood moon tetrad. Now I'm showing you this Google Trends. September 2015 is when the final blood moon happened of this tetrad. And it's right when the Mandela Effect kicked off on the internet. And you know, it was named around 2009, accredited to Fiona Broom for giving it the name. But it really took off on the internet around September 2015, shortly thereafter. And you can also see in this Google Trends, I marked that right now, we're at the highest point. We're trending higher now than we have in the past 3 years. So we have a surge now as we're having this International Mandela Effect Conference. There's a surge in the trend of the Mandela Effect online. So I thought that was worthy of note and very interesting. So here we are, 2016. My Mandela Effect revelation. The reason why I'm here and you're watching. The reason why this conference is happening. This incredible Mandela Effect that many people don't even believe is happening. And that shows you the level they are in their expansion of awareness and consciousness. They're just not there yet. But there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. They're not ready. And we'll just leave it at that. So my Mandela Effect revelation is accredited to my almost going to be 18-year-old son here in a couple weeks. He was at 14 years old at the time. And he came up to me one day and asked me a series of questions. He said, "Hey, Dad, how do you spell Looney Tunes?" And I said, LOONEYTOONS. And then he said, "When did Mother Teresa become a saint?" And I said, "Oh, wow, that was sometime in the 90s. And then he said, "How do you spell Oscar Mayer?" I said, OSCARMEYER. And he asked me a few other questions. How to spell Febreze, I think. And I spelled it FEBREEZE. And then I get the ton of bricks that you see here in the other image. He hit me with a ton of bricks. He said, "Dad, you got everything wrong." And I'm like, "What do you mean? I've known these things half my life. 90% of my life, I've known these things. Since I was a little kid, I've known these things. How could I get all these things wrong?" And, you know, as many people, when they're confronted with the Mandela Effect, it doesn't make sense at first. So you start trying to make sense of it. Well, there's got to be some rational explanation. You look it up online, you'll find misremembering. Just simple little error. Memory's not good. The human brain's very fallible, and human memory is bad. We reconstruct our memories when we think of things, and so you can't depend on memory. And so that's what a lot of people were saying. That didn't make any sense to me, because when I got online, I found that there were all these other people experiencing the Mandela Effect. And we all remembered the same exact things. So it made no sense to me that it was just some memory issue. That I was creating these memories, like Sinbad and being in a movie that he never made called Shazam. People was, "Oh, you just confabulated that." What do you mean I confabulate? How could me and a million other people confabulate the same movie that a comedian Sinbad played in? That makes no sense. And then you have the people coming out of the woodwork. "Oh, well, you're thinking of Shaquille O'Neal in his, I think, 1996 movie, Kazam, which sounds like Shazam. So how easy is that to make a mistake? Kazam, Shazam." But the problem with those people is that I have a clear anchor memory of remembering Shaquille O'Neal's movie when it came out, thinking to myself, "Well, what's Shaq doing? He's copying Sinbad. He just did a genie movie a couple years ago." I have a very clear memory. I would have no reason to have that memory unless you think that I confabulated the movie back around 94 when all these other people confabulated them. It just makes no sense, okay? And we'll move along. I don't need to try and prove the Mandela Effect. Most of you watching this video know that it's a real thing. It's just frustrating. So let's get into this. I made my first Mandela Effect video in March of 2016. I believe it has about 622,000 views. And shortly thereafter, I realized what I had to do. I had to stop going down the financial rabbit hole trying to expose the Federal Reserve. It's kind of a dark rabbit hole, and I was happy eventually that the Mandela Effect came along and saved me from what I was doing. I look at the Mandela Effect as a personal savior. I switched the channel. I left the banner the same. I left it all the same as a testament to how incredible the Mandela Effect was for me. So first on my list here is switching my channel. It became apparent to me that I was going to have to switch my channel to talking about the Mandela Effect because I was so mind blown. I was hit with a ton of bricks and it would change my life forever. I was so mind blown, I couldn't imagine not making videos on this. And once I started researching it online, I realized that I was no longer going to be doing financial videos. And I left up my banner the exact same way as it was with the gold and the silver as a testament to this incredible phenomenon that came over me and you know, was such an important thing. And I knew it right away. So I was on YouTube. I found Life Matrix. I found Sean Indigo, a few other channels. I'll never forget the first few Life Matrix videos where he's just mind blown over the Mandela Effect. He's standing in the gym talking about it, or another one where he's sitting at home on the bed and the cat's there or something. I mean, I'll never forget that because that point in my life is such a remarkable point, the awakening to the Mandela Effect. I know many of you have your own stories. It's just an incredible time when you're hit with the Mandela Effect. There's so many people that still have never even heard of it. And that sometime when they're ready, they'll become aware of it, but it'll be different for them. See, because for me and many others back in 2016, we were just learning about many Mandela effects. And we learned about them together in a community that we formed online. Now, if you know hundreds of Mandela effects, you have a responsibility. You have to be careful. You can't just throw 100 things at somebody. They're not going to be able to handle it if they're experiencing it like me and many others. Intensely experiencing the Mandela Effect, you have a responsibility to be careful because this is a very powerful phenomenon. And back when I learned about it, and many of you watching I know learned about it, even in late 2015 before me, it wasn't as big of a shock as it could be for someone now. So I just really wanted to talk about that and make that clear. So I was making videos on the Mandela Effect, and it became apparent that I would have to start asking people, well, do you remember Oscar M-E-Y-E-R or M-A-Y-E-R? And I would have to start a voting video. I would have to start doing voting videos. So YouTube already has the thumb up and thumb down. So I figured I'll just use that. And people can use that to vote. Now there is a way that you can do polls and you can attach it to your video, but that shows percentages. I didn't want 78% remember this and 22% remember that. I wanted numbers. I wanted raw numbers. So with the thumb up and thumb down, I can get 1,000 people remember a cornucopia on Fruit of the Loom and 100 don't. Something like that. That's probably close to the numbers you're going to go find if you check my video. So, I went with that and it's worked out really well. I now have documented over 360 videos that people have voted on, and you can see some of the percentages are mind-blowing. 95, 96%. Of thousands of people remember something that has never been in this current reality. We're being told never was. It's just totally mind-blowing. So as many of us learned, after wanting to run and tell people about this incredible phenomenon, not many family members were very accepting or wanting to even discuss it much. Or friends. A lot of people were like, even the people that noticed something wrong, oh man, I must have remembered that wrong. Or people who think, wow, that's weird. What are we gonna have for dinner? What time's the game come on?
It's like, do you understand what this means? We're talking to these people and you just showed them that reality can change and they want to know what's for dinner. I mean, the response from people was almost as mind-blowing as the phenomenon itself as time went on. So now we get to the part where we're talking about instant downloads. Now this was the part that made me eventually come to the best theory that I've found, that I actually found in my research a decade ago. But it turns out lines up real well explaining the Mandela Effect, or potentially. So I'll get to that here soon, but the instant downloads is an amazing phenomenon in itself. And many of you know what I'm talking about when you present Mandela Effects to someone. You ask them, how do you spell FAO Schwartz? And they'll say FAO SCHWARTZ. Toy company from the 1860s. Most people know how to spell FAO Schwartz. And then you ask, well, how do you spell Oscar Mayer? And they say, Oscar, OSCAR, MEYER. And you ask them, oh, how do you spell JC Penney? JCPENNY, they'll say. And then you tell them, well, it's PENNEY, it's FAO Schwarz, because there's no T, SCHWARZ. And you tell them that it's OSCAR MAYER, Mayer. It's always been Oscar Mayer. And then you'll have the person say, oh wow, I got that wrong. Oh, I made a mistake. You know, I thought I knew those things, but I made mistakes. It's like they take an instant download of, you've known these things, how to spell them your whole life. And you can just automatically say that, oh, I made a mistake. And yeah, that's right. It's spelled PENNEY. Or yeah, it's always been SCHWARZ. I don't know why I was adding a T. That's weird. I mean, it's always been that, right? Bizarre. Just totally bizarre. The instant download is so strange to people. So we can't have a discussion of my journey with the Mandela Effect without talking about ridicule and judgment. I faced a lot of ridicule and a lot of judgment. I had to block a lot of people. A lot of people aren't ready for the Mandela Effect. They're not experiencing it. If they're not experiencing it, you know, if they actually remember JCPENNEY, they're just going to think you're misremembering and that your ego's too big to allow you to believe that you're just making a mistake. But there's so much more going on here, and you know, that's one part of having to deal with awakening to the Mandela Effect. There's people who aren't yet awakening to it, but looking at the Google Trends, we may have a new wave of folks, and they're lucky because we're here for them. See, we didn't really have anyone here for us in the beginning, but we had each other, and I'm so thankful to YouTube and all the people that subscribed to me on YouTube, all the tens of thousands of comments that came in back then. I'm very grateful and thankful to all of you. You helped me get through my Mandela Effect awakening, which was a very hard time. I was stuck on the couch literally for a few days trying to figure out what's going on with my reality. How is the reality changing? What's happening? It was initially for a few days kind of fearful. I was reacting from the ego, and my ego was shattered, and I'm like, this is kind of scary. This is weird. I had a hard time. Ever since then, it's been a positive thing. But initially, I have to admit, it was a little difficult for a few days. My son dropped a ton of bricks on me, and you know, it was hard to deal with. So the ridicule and the judgment continues, but it was, you know, really strong when I first started forming this Mandela Effect channel that I have now. So I've been determined to document my memories, and I won't stop until I feel it's the time to stop. But I'm continuing to document my memories now with the voting video series. I'd say about a year ago, I started noticing waves with the Mandela Effect. I would say, I'm not really noticing any Mandela effects. And people would say, well, I still see things changing. It hasn't stopped. And I believe them. I'm not going to be a Mandela effect judge and say, no, that's not a Mandela effect, or this is. A lot of people, I learned early on not to be a Mandela effect judge. Some people that never got over that. To this day, they'll tell you that that's not a Mandela effect. I don't know how they know your memory and everyone else's, but anyhow. I'm sorry. It's hard not to go off on these little tangents when thinking about the frustration that I had with the ridicule and the judgment over the years. But, not everyone sees the Mandela effect as a positive thing, and I feel sorry for those people. But ultimately, I believe it's a very positive thing. And it's part of our expansion of consciousness and shift in consciousness that we're participating in this time in human history. So I was talking about noticing waves. So I didn't notice anything for a period of time, maybe a month and a half, and then a rush of changes. I would know, because I'd get emails, I'd see comments, I'd see stuff posted on the internet, I'd see comments coming in on my videos. Hey, this is this now, and look at this. This is how do you spell this? And so I started noticing this a year and a half ago. And every few months there'd be waves. So it's be coming to me in waves, which I thought was really interesting. Also, out of this Mandela effect, I learned of a hear what you want phenomenon, is what I call it. Other people call it other thing. To me, that best explains what it is. In music, or also in speeches and other things, I've documented many different lyrics where you can hear it one way or you can hear something totally different, depending on what you want to hear. Like Laurel and Yanny. There's this thing that was famous on, popular on the internet. There's a sound, and it's actually saying Laurel, I believe, from a dictionary.com type site. But people are hearing Yanny. And so I guess it was found out that they're like, what's that Yanny I hear? And they're like, Yanny, it's Laurel. And so we're hearing different things. I think we've always been hearing different things, and we're just now coming into awareness and an expanded consciousness at a level where we can hear different things. I have lots of examples. There's some mind-blowing examples where you can totally hear different things. It's not, like I said, it's not misheard lyrics. There's an example from Sesame Street where Grover is looking at someone's cell phone and he says to them, well, that's an excellent idea. But if you think to yourself, that's an effing excellent idea or something like that, you can very clearly hear him use the F word. And then you can hear him say excellent. And you can shift it back and forth. And there are many examples of this. So the hear what you want phenomenon, I learned because I was making Mandela Effect videos. I made one on Journey. And people were saying, well, that's not what they're saying. They're saying this. You need to get your ears checked. And then I had comments saying, no, I hear what you hear. And then I had people saying, well, if I want to hear his, I can hear his. Or if I want to hear her, I can hear her. I can play it over and over again. I can hear his, her, back and forth. Somehow, we're able to shift these things. And I believe this is just going to continue to grow and expand. And to me, it's part of creating the reality that you want. That's what I say at the end of every video I make on YouTube. And that's the main thing that I've learned from the Mandela Effect, that we are actually creating our reality. We're not just reacting to what's happening around us. We are creators. We're not unconscious reactors or observers. We're powerful creators, and that's why the Incas said this is the time of meeting ourselves again. That's why the Hopi said that we're the ones we're waiting for. We're powerful creators, and to me, the Mandela Effect reinforced that. I also wanted to mention that my own name became a Mandela Effect. Moneybag 73. It was maybe 2.5 years ago, maybe even 3 now at this point, when I started having people say, did you change your name from Moneybag 76? And I thought it was kind of odd after about 10 people asked me. I'm like, why are all these people thinking I changed my name? It's been Moneybag 73 since 2009. So after, it must have been 20 people or so asked me, did you change your name from Moneybag 76? This was over several months, mind you. I decided, okay, I'm going to make a video. I'm going to do a voting video. Thumb up, thumb down. Do you remember me as Moneybag 76 or Moneybag 73? I was mind blown by the fact that if you go look now, I think there's still more thumb down or whatever I said for 76. There's more people voted for 76 than 73. I couldn't believe it. So it's really odd, very, very odd. To this day, I have people say, back when all these things were changing, I was searching up Moneybag 76. Let's see what he put on today. Let's see what he's come up with lately, what changes he's been talking about. So I don't know, very crazy. So before we move on to where I think things may be headed and what I kind of think is going on, I'd like to mention that in November of 2019, I was searching up videos on YouTube having to do with the Mandela Effect that were new for the day, like I do almost every day for 4 years in my continued research of this incredible phenomenon. And I found a show entitled Art Bell Archive Live Show. And the host of the show, AJ, was talking about the Mandela Effect. And he was playing some clips of Art Bell from back in 2000, where he was mentioning that Mandela had died in prison. And he was interviewing, well, I don't know, well, part of it was him interviewing Cynthia Sue Larson, who I had been on a live panel with back around 2017 on Dr. Taryn Lupo's channel. So I reached out to the host, AJ, and I said, well, I know Cynthia. I'm in communication with her, and, we're discussing the Mandela Effect. And I was a fan of Art Bell and, listened to the show. Didn't know that whole thing with him talking about Mandela was a thing. And so I reached out and I told him that, I had the voting video series. I'm engulfed in the Mandela Effect. And move forward so many months, I'm now co-host of a monthly Mandela Effect show. So that has come, a wonderful thing that's come out of the Mandela Effect. And I really liked the style of the radio show that AJ had. I enjoyed, he was extremely Mandela affected. So I enjoyed presenting him different changes. And, we have shows where it totally blowing his mind. And it made for a great combination between someone who didn't know about the Mandela Effect very much and someone who knew quite a bit about it coming together, and I think we made some incredible shows together. Our last show, we were able to interview Dr. Carl Johan Kalaman. I originally found Dr. Kalaman while researching the December 21st, 2012 date, and he was one of the only people who didn't observe that date as a Mayan calendar expert of, at that time, 30 years of research into the Mayan calendar. He had an October 2011 end date. So he stood out to me as someone who was different. He was the only one with a different date. So as I went through my awakening with the Mandela Effect, and I saw the people with the instant downloads, I saw the waves of effects coming in the past year or so, I connected it to the research of Dr. Kalaman and really wanted to have him on the show. I reached out and it all came together. And he has a book that he wrote called The 9 Waves of Creation. And to me, this is the best theory. I mentioned some of the theories earlier on in the presentation. There's lots of theories to what's happening with the Mandela Effect. But to me, this is where I'm going to be focused. So moving on, I'm going to put more focus into this. I want to understand it better. To me, I think there's a lot happening here with the 9 levels of consciousness creation and how each level is a different shift in consciousness and a different wave, a different frequency. And in 2011, the 9th wave was set into motion. So all the waves are still happening. The last one is like every month and a half, I think it is. It's a fast wave. It's a lot quicker wave, higher frequency wave. And since 2011, we've been able to resonate with it. But it's not something that you can just fully resonate with. This is something over time. This is a process where we slowly resonate with it. Maybe in combination with the other ones, you see different realities. You start to see reality differently through filters that through, as you raise your vibration, you blow out certain filters and you start seeing reality differently, and you have an expansion of consciousness. The ninth wave in the ninth level of the pyramid, Dr. Kalaman says, is the unity consciousness, where we move away from, the me and we move into the we. So maybe moving away from the me, Mandela Effect, we move into the we of the unity consciousness. So to me, that's where this is all headed. So I'm definitely going to be doing further research in this with the frequency waves of Dr. Kalaman says that we create the reality that we experience with these waves. And that's what the Maya believed. So it's an incredible research. If you're not aware of it, I encourage you to look into it. I'm going to be researching it more myself, trying to understand what's happening. But to me, this interview we did was groundbreaking. Dr. Kalaman said he had never spoken publicly about the Mandela Effect. He said he had heard about it, but didn't really know much about it. And I'm looking forward to talking to him more about this in the future and what he's come up with now that he knows more about the Mandela Effect. So I encourage you to listen to that interview that we did. It's on my channel and it's on AJ's channel, the Rippin' Rabbit Hole. If you're interested in hearing that theory, because to me, this theory explaining how and why, and it goes into quantum physics and holographic evolution and the destiny of humanity. And so it's an incredible body of research that Dr. Kalaman has over the last 40 years. I think he has 6 or 7 books. So I would encourage anyone to look at that there. So coming full circle back to where I started with the Hopi saying that we're the ones that we've been waiting for. I'd like to end it here with talking about where I think this is all headed. I think we're at a time in human history where we all need to make a choice. I briefly wanted to mention Dolores Cannon and her work with the New Earth. If we're resonating at a higher frequency, we're moving into these higher self decisions. We're choosing it. Dr. Kalaman says that you have to want to resonate with the unity consciousness of the ninth wave of the Mayan pyramid. You have to seek that. It's not just an automatic thing. So I think moving forward, we all need to connect with our higher self more than the ego, which is where I spent the first half of my life and have been working really hard trying to move away from. And that's part of the process. We're all in this process right here that I have in front of you. So my go create the reality that you want goes hand in hand with this ego versus higher self, which I think is the pinnacle of this expansion that we've become aware of that's happening on the planet. This is where we're at. Now, it splinters off into a whole lot of other areas, a lot of things, like I was saying, the new Earth, 5D, am I going to get to 5D? You hear a lot of people talking about 5D. What's the fifth dimension? Well, it's not a place you're going to go to. You're not just going to jump to the fifth dimension. It's an expanded awareness and consciousness that you're experiencing here. It's more the higher self. Connecting with the higher self, you are seeing more of the fifth dimension rather than just the low density, physical, heavy, dense third dimension that we're a part of. But with this awakening and our spiritual awakening, we can, in our expanded consciousness, we can connect to this higher self more. So I wanted to read this off here. So you have the ego is someone who looks at being a victim of what's happening around them, as opposed to knowing that you're creating your own reality with your thoughts and beliefs. You're a reactor to everything with your ego. So rather than being stressed over a situation that you're in, you can choose to be relaxed. You can connect with that higher self that knows there's no reason to be stressed. You can just go with the flow of the river that we talked about in the beginning of the presentation. Push off from the shore and just know that the river has its destination. That's part of connecting with the higher self. Stop making decisions based in fear. making them from love. This is a huge part, I believe, of where we're headed. Making decisions from the heart. People using their ego think that they know it all. And you can see that in how a lot of people carry themselves, as opposed to understanding how very little you actually do know. As a true awakening, in my opinion. Blaming others for your failures, as opposed to accepting responsibility for your failures. Being fearful of change, as opposed to embracing it. The me mentality versus the we, the unity, the separation. I believe as we move forward, we're going to learn and lift the veil more on the illusion that we're separate from divine consciousness. We're already a part of it. We just need to awaken to realize it. We need to realize that we're the ones we've been waiting for, and that we're part of it. That's who we are and what we really are. It's not who you see here on this screen in front of you. It's not who I really am. So ultimately, it's complicated versus I'm happy. So, this is a process that we're all in. It's an incredible time to be alive. I'm so excited for where this is going to lead. I've pushed off. I'm in the river. I'm looking around who's around me. I thank you for joining me for this presentation of my journey with the Mandela Effect, my awakening, if you will. I'm happy to see you in the river with me, and let's just see where this all leads. This is just an incredible time to be alive in human history. I'm proud to be here presenting this to you today, and go create the reality that you want. Thank you.
Welcome everybody to the Q&A of Moneybags 73, and I hope I got the number right because I am horrible about actually getting the right number. Evan, welcome. We are so glad to have you here. What an amazing talk you just gave. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, Jerry. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, my friend. You sound beautiful. And thank you, Cynthia, for being here and co-moderating. Cynthia, how are you sounding over there?
I'm fine. Hopefully I sound good.
Sounding beautiful. Excellent. And thank you, everybody who's been in the chat. We've had some absolutely incredible questions. We've got quite a few of them to go through, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Moneybags, or Evan.
Yes.
Otsko, and I hope I pronounced that name right. Otsko asked, have you noticed Luke Skywalker's eyes in Star Wars change from clear blue to green?
I have not. No. That's not something I've picked up on or been made aware of. No.
Well, maybe that's something you can definitely look for later.
Yes.
All right. Eileen asked, does he know of an equitable financial system for the good of all?
Well, I would have said probably moving away from some type of monetary system like we have now, but with cryptocurrency and what I've learned from it, which I have to say I was against cryptocurrency. I thought it was based on nothing. It had no backing. It was worthless. That was due to my ignorance of not understanding the technology that it's based on, the blockchain technology. So I'd have to say going forward, a decentralized digital currency is where I think we might be headed. We have to get away from having a Federal Reserve control the currency for the planet, because it's not in our best interest. And we can see where that's leading now. We have with the current situation, we're probably close to, I don't even know what it is now, 26 trillion in debt. I mean, it's just that it's an unimaginable amount of debt that we have, and it's not going to end well. It has to be reset. I believe that it's going to be reset at some point, and I believe that cryptocurrency has a place in a future system for us.
All right. Thank you for that. I'm really into the cryptocurrency myself. Cynthia, would you like to chime in on this at all?
Oh, yes. This question reminds me of John Perkins, who's written, he originally wrote a book about the economic hitman because he was hired to basically destroy wild forest systems and install huge debt-related projects in countries that could not afford it. And anyways, fast forward to his most recent work, he actually advocates our attention being placed in the direction of a life economy instead of what he calls a death economy. So this is a bigger topic than we can go into in this Q&A. I just want to reference it so people know they can look up the work of author John Perkins, who he also wrote The World is As You Dream It. So he's very strong in terms of the topics we're talking about. He really believes in it. But he takes the work he's done working for the dark side and then brings it more to the light side about how we can move forward. And I think those are very big, positive things that we can all do. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Cynthia. That is a really good book, actually. I've heard a lot about it. I haven't read it myself, I will be fair, but I've heard a whole lot of good stuff about it from a lot of researchers. So take that as you guys will, and please do check that out. Moneybags, Rippin' Rabbit Hole asked, Moneybag 73, do you feel the ME changes are connected to the conversation narrative of the day or time? So do you think the changes, like maybe Bible changes, for instance, kind of relate to what we're seeing in the world around us?
Over the last 4 years, a lot of people try to make sense of the changes. I think that's common human nature. We try to make sense of things and find patterns and everything. A few stick out to me, and I've been thinking about this for a long time. The life is like a box of chocolates definitely stands out when this question is posed. I think that, to me, that speaks to me as life. I always knew it as life is like a box of chocolates because that's how I saw life in the past. I kind of saw it like a box of chocolates. You never knew what cards you were going to be dealt. You just didn't know. But now we're being told that it was like a box of chocolates. So it's no longer a box of chocolates because I feel in the future we're deciding more what's happening. We're learning that we're powerful creators and we're going to be creating the world we want. So we're not just going to be unconscious observers with our box of chocolates. I mean, that's what I see with that. Another one that comes to mind is the Jaws movie. You're going to need a bigger boat. Well, that's what it is. Go watch it. Many people recall we're going to need a bigger boat because they were all working on it together and they were going to need a bigger boat. The message there could be that, well, you as an individual are going to need a bigger boat because you're going to have a lot more responsibility. You're going to have a lot more decision making to do because you're going to learn that you're creating your reality, which a lot of people, they don't see how that's possible. They're just reacting to the reality that they're being presented with as unconscious observers. But I believe that they're going to learn that they're conscious creators. And I think that's part of, that was my whole talk. That's where I feel, and I feel a lot of people here in this community agree with that. And that's, where I believe we're headed.
All right. Appreciate that. And Cynthia, would you like to weigh in once again?
Oh, well, I just love the reference to life is and was like a box of chocolates. And that was a piece that showed up in the art exhibit that we saw in Ketchum, Idaho last November. So, and we definitely spent a little time talking about that. So yes, I can think it's fair to say most of us do agree with this take on it. Although I think it's shocking to a lot of people who, for whatever reason, they may feel it's more comfortable for them to think they are doing this to us. So I guess I would love to know, with Kalaman's, I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to answer and then ask, just continue the conversation, because Dr. Kalaman refers to this idea that we're going through these waves. And obviously that's a really brilliant way to see how can we work with those who might still be stuck in the life is like a box of chocolates. And in other words, they might be doing something to us. I'd love your take on that, Evan, if you've touched on anything that you think could gently, because we can't forcefully wake people up, but is there something that can help people stop pointing fingers like they're doing this to us and start?
Yeah, to be honest, I've kind of moved away from the they. I don't really want to give them so much credit. But yes, I see where a lot of people are coming. That's what I've noticed throughout the years, recently, mainly. And I've seen a lot of people That's the easiest way. I think that comes from fear that's been instilled in us throughout our lifetime, the they. I continuously hear the word they. And there's a lot of theys. You could say that the theys are the archons that were mentioned in the Nag Hammadi material that were written about thousands of years ago. Entities that feed off our fear. So I watch people who talk about the fact that they're not going to feed them a single morsel. They're pushing that away. I think that's a choice. It's one of the choices I was talking about at the end of my presentation today, is that you can make the choice to not give them any power. But yeah, I still believe there is some type of negative force. It's hard not to see it operating, but I feel that we're learning that we can transcend that, and that we're actually just as powerful or more powerful than that force that's been controlling us. So I can't say I don't believe in controllers and a hidden hand, because I do, but I feel that the veil's being lifted on all that, and we're going to be able to have much more control moving forward. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, I love that. And it reminds me too, just one more quick, I'll ask another question as long as I'm jumping in here. I get to ask a question. There are different ideas that were presented. I love your presentation of the indigenous ideas. And are you familiar, Evan, with the concept that some people looking at this prophesized time recognize that there might be sort of an either or kind of an outcome? It might be peace and cooperation with love, strength, and balance, or it could be the greed and comfort-based approach with control. Would you say that's kind of what you saw in most of the places you looked as well?
As I hear you say that, I instantly think of Dolores Cannon and her New Earth, talking about how we're going to be creating a new Earth, and those who haven't raised their frequency, maybe you want to say, as along with the Earth as much, because the Earth is, we could see it with the Schumann resonance. The frequencies are changing and they're going higher. They're not going lower. So we have to align with that, because everything's electricity and frequency and vibration. We can't get away from it. That's what makes up everything in the universe. So if we're going to move with the planet, I believe, the last few years have taken me so many different paths. I've been learning a lot of stuff, and I presented, what I've kind of my journey and everything. But, I've been looking a lot at the frequency, like you were mentioning with Carl Kalman's work, and I'm reading his latest book. I'm looking at it more. This is something ongoing. I can't speak to. I mentioned his work because I think it's really important, and I don't really hear anyone talking about his work along with the Mandela Effect. But I think that his work is really important, and I need to learn more about it, but I definitely think there's something there. And, the fact that how we're downloading these waves at 9 different levels of waves, and how that creates our reality, can't say I actually understand that. It just really rang true with me, because I understand the Mandela Effect. I don't understand exactly how it's happening, but just from what I've experienced and witnessed with the Mandela Effect, the whole frequency thing and downloading the waves, it makes sense with what I've seen. Like I was saying in my presentation, with people seeming to take instant downloads, when you present them with information that they have a cognitive dissonance, and then they're like, oh yeah, I just my whole life, I just remembered that wrong. It doesn't make any sense. So anyway, I hope that answers the question. But I think that there's actually an infinite amount of possible outcomes, and half of them are good, half of them are bad. I think it's all on the individual. That's what I was saying also at the end of my presentation. The individual, more so now than ever, has to make a choice. Are they going to go down that path of unconscious observer, or are they going to go down the conscious creator path? And I think that's to me, that's like the main theme here with all this, being part of this conference and everything else. I think to me, that's like something that not everyone is really aware of. I mean, a lot of people will tell there's nothing happening. What's this conference? I mean, what are you guys talking about? There's nothing happening. And they're right. They're 100% right. For them, there is nothing happening. It's not happening yet. They're not there. They haven't arrived. They're not here. So, it's a crazy time.
Yeah, I was saying in the chat room that I remember being super excited when this first became really clear to me, and I wanted to talk about it with people, but they would take huge steps backward from me, literally. And then you realize, okay, we're not ready for this.
Have you encountered that, Jerry? I mean, I'm sure you have, or you tried talking about the Mandela Effect, and you see the people just kind of go back away from you?
Oh yeah.
Turn around and go the
I
other
work
way.
in public, and in the beginning, I was how do I say this? I was more open about talking about it more freely, and I realized that the customers were not taking it as well as I was hoping that they would be taking it. So yeah, I definitely got some very strange reactions. So now I found just being subtle. And when people mention something, I really couldn't find that. Maybe you can prove me wrong, but things like the I Love Lucy one, little subtleties. You mentioned frequencies, and it goes in to the next question actually that we had from My Life DIY. She asks, are we more or less affected scale wise on ME depending where our frequency higher or lower? And will it in turn make us more tuned into ME?
That's what I'm seeing from researching this phenomenon for the last 4 years. I can't say for certain. I don't know for sure, but I believe that's what's happening from my research. And it seems like because the people that I've dealt with the last 4.5 years, they don't really seem to be negative. Although, now that I think about it, I mean, there are negative people that are experiencing the Mandela Effect, and they look at it in a negative light. I mean, they think that there's demons at quantum computers, and that's who's responsible for this. That could be true, I guess. I mean, anything could be true. I don't think that's what's happening, but that's where they've come to the conclusion that that's what's happening. So I don't know. I want to say yes. That's what I feel. I feel it has to do with our frequency, but I can't say ultimately that that's true or not.
Appreciate that. Cynthia, anything to add?
Oh, I'd agree that definitely there's a connection that I've observed. So, when I go into a state of gratitude, I get higher percentages of Mandela effects on a personal nature. When I get into reverence, I literally see miracles. So I'd say definitely there's a frequency connection. That's what I've directly observed.
There's definitely a frequency connection somewhere, and we know that from the Schumann resonance and the effects that it has on it. So we do know
That's
definitely
true.
there's some type of frequency connection directly. I, again, like you, don't know exactly what it is yet, but the science is definitely in the works. Next question comes from High Vibin 888. He asks, or he or she, I do apologize. Can siblings have the same memory of a high intensity event that only happened to one of them? Could it be timeline jumping where each sibling experienced it? Or are they sharing memories?
Yeah, I can't answer that definitively. I imagine that it's possible, yes. I've heard stories of siblings, especially twins, that experience things, one happening to one that the other's not there. I believe we have those connections. I believe we're all connected through, if you want to call it a quantum field or some type of field that connects all of us. Because I experience things where I'll say something about the neighbor, and the next day the neighbor's out there cleaning up the weeds, and I was just telling my wife that looks awful for the neighborhood. I mean, there's some connection there. I can't explain it, but somehow this is not something happened one time. It was like a normal thing for me, and it's kind of weird because as you see these connections, I grew up not thinking we were all connected. Everything was connected, but I believe it is. Definitely, to the question, yes, I believe that those things are possible. Totally.
Appreciate that, Cynthia.
Yes, I think the twin studies are quite strong evidence for this, that it does happen, that something can happen to one sibling and another hears about it. Doesn't even have to be siblings, though, because it seems like we've got a strong connection. I once walked into the garage barefoot, stepped on something that was warm and soft. Before I had time to even react or say anything, inside the house, my younger daughter screamed, just a scream of just shock and terror, which would have been maybe what I might have done. But she sort of did it for me. And I'm a mom, so I run into the house. What's wrong? And she said, I don't know. I stepped on a dead rat. But anyway.
I've talked in my talk yesterday about the twin effect and the idea that it could be quantum entanglement, and they could share many things that science is yet to figure out. We know they share feelings and emotions nonetheless. And when you said, Evan, that we are all connected through some type of field or connected somehow, I fully 110% agree with you. My theory suggests that it's through a proxy into subconscious. We can always debate when and how and where that is, but I fully agree somehow we are all connected. So well stated, my friend. One more question coming in from the chat. Chain 777 says, why do most people just shut down and change the subject when we mentioned the Mandela?
Yeah, many of us have seen that happen over and over again. Well, my first impression is that they're not ready to deal with that. It doesn't fit into their box of tools, if you will. I mean, they don't have a tool to think outside the box and to think that reality shifts, because I grew up not thinking reality changed. I know Cynthia talks about when she was younger, she saw reality changes. I mean, she grew up with that. I didn't. Maybe 10 years ago, I saw my first one with Lucky's in the Bay Area in California. It was always Lucky's for me, but now I'm being told it's always Lucky. And it's mind blowing to see the stores back pictures on the internet of the 40s, and it says Lucky. It's just, so I didn't grow up noticing that. So, it's something that I don't know. It's not, it's kind of a tough subject. I just don't think a lot of people are ready to talk about that. It seems nonsensical to a lot of people. It's just rubbish because they haven't experienced it. So it's so hard especially if they haven't experienced it. It's hard to say, oh yeah, all these other people, they're jumping timelines, they're shifting realities, and I'm just not doing it. I mean, I think they can't really relate. That's probably why they go away from it. They can't relate to that. That's probably the best answer I have.
Well, I think honestly, excuse me, it comes down to the implications. If they admit that they're right or that you're right, the implications of what that means down the line, I think, is what really, in my opinion, really kind of stops them and goes, wait. My opinion only. Cynthia, would you like to add to that?
I think it does. Any topic you bring up where there's no common framework or no point of reference, that subject will tend to get dropped. So I would tend to agree with what Evan said, that this is just a topic. If they feel like they haven't experienced it, even though all of us at this conference probably would say, oh, yes, you did. But to them, they haven't yet experienced it. They're not aware of it anyway. Even if you point out this is how nature operates, which is where I love to go with it, they're still going to say, but this doesn't affect me. That they don't have that frame of reference. So it doesn't quite seem real until it does, until it happens to them. And then they come back to us like, you won't believe what happened. Then and only then I think they'd be willing to talk about it. But before that, there's not much interest.
Yeah, and I would like to add that we'll be here for those people. See, back 30, 40 years ago, you probably didn't have many people to talk to, Cynthia, right? I mean,
oh gosh, no, I didn't. It was terrible. I mean, in the sense of sort of a vast void, which is why I started trying to get the word out in the early days before there was much of an internet, the wild, non-existent internet in the 90s. Just trying to let people know I'll share these reports. I got so much gratitude back from people, like you do now with these Mandela Effect videos, the voting ones you do and everything. But back in those days, the newsletter that I sent out, the Reality Shifters News, was just about the only thing out there that was helping people see that they're not alone. And all those issues are still on my website. They're fantastic, scientific, documented. I mean, they're reference points, they're resources for any researchers that want to go back and see what was being reported in the 90s, in the 2000s, and so forth. It may not be the Mandela Effect as we know it today, but it was kind of the beginnings of people noticing it.
And I love in your talk, you mentioned that when you started, Evan, there weren't this community here. There wasn't that backing there. You kind of built a lot of the community around your channel. And as we all have become a community together, and that's kind of what that's exactly what this conference is for. And what we're built on is making that community, pulling together, getting these ideas together. I think it's amazing, and I'm glad to have you on board for it. It's just absolutely, we are the pioneers of this. Really, we are in the beginning. We are truly the pioneers of this brand new phenomenon.
We truly are. As incredible as that seems, or mind-blowing as that is, I mean, here we are, we're doing this. I mean, I'm still blown away. I'm almost 5 years into researching this incredible phenomenon, and it's still just as mind-blowing to me because it's really happening. I feel sorry for the people who don't think it's happening, but I think that they'll come around, or they're just not meant to be participating in it. But it is. It's an incredible thing, and I'm happy to have been able to have a platform for people to discuss it. And I was helped just as much as they say I helped them. They helped me just as much by being able to read their comments, because I was going through my own tough time back early 2016. I was tripping out. I was like, because it hit me all of a sudden. I had noticed a few things, like I said, Lucky's like 10 years ago, Jiffy maybe 6-7 years ago, but those were really the only two things I noticed change. And I just thought, oh, well, Jiffy changed their logo, and then went on with my life. It was just a logo change to me at that time. But then I got hit with everything. It was hard to deal with. I don't have a problem saying that. It was really difficult, but this community that we formed it benefits a lot of people. And I think the most important thing is that it's there for the people because now that are just now saying, hey, you know what? JCPenney, it's not how I remember it. I mean, people are just now noticing these things now.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
People it's not something that happened. And then to me, there's an individual thing that people are waking up to this phenomenon when they're ready. And now they have a whole community of people here on YouTube that are here for questions that they have. There was a few channels I watched that were there for questions I had back in early 2016. I didn't find Cynthia's work or her books or anything, which I find kind of weird. We met on a panel in 2017 on Dr. Darren Lupo's channel, right?
That's right. Yeah, Taryn Lupo, right. Might have been 2016 or 2017. I'd have to look it up, but yeah, it was a while ago.
Yes,
right.
Somewhere around there. But I didn't, initially I didn't know there was other people. I just
Right.
found a few people making videos on YouTube. Luckily, there were those couple people that had woken up in late 2015.
Yeah.
So, fortunately for anyone who's waking up now, and the other thing I want to mention is it's different. I heard about those few initial things like, life is like a box of chocolates, Oscar Mayer, JCPenney, all those things we know from 5 years ago, a lot of us. But now I've discovered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds more that can all hit someone at one time now. That wasn't possible 5 years ago. Over the course of time, we've all discovered all these additional things that we don't remember being that way. And that can all hit someone at once now. You can throw 500 things at someone if you know what to throw at them. And a lot of us do because we've been researching this. And that's hard to deal with. I mean, I can't even imagine. I know how hard it was to deal with for me just with 10 or 20 things in the beginning. So I really think we have a responsibility how we present this to people, because you really can wreck someone, or like you can really, make havoc for somebody, presenting them with like 50 things in one day, and they just can't compute. They can't compute it. Well, I'm kind of.
I agree. I'm going to go ahead and bring up another question here. Jen's Gems says Cynthia Sue Larsen to Larson name changed after significant health issues for her. Moneybags 76 to 73. Are you aware of something similar happening to you like NDE?
Me with the
Yes.
number?
Yes. Yeah. Did anything happen to you around the time that your number popped out and became 73 according to the community?
No, I mean I react probably like a lot of other famous people would that we claim their names have changed. They're probably not aware of it. I'm not really. I joke that Moneybag 76 said this or that. I mean, I joke about it, but I don't. I don't never remember. I haven't changed my name since 2009. I've been Moneybag 73 on YouTube. 11 years. I've never changed it. So, but I don't doubt the fact. See, this is the thing. I'm not going to be like some well-known actor we know who said that there's no way he acted as a genie in a movie. I mean, and he gets mad at people. I've seen him do interviews and he gets angry when people say, "I saw you as the genie," and he just gets irate. I'm not going to. So I don't really understand. I don't know. I don't want to get off on that, but I believe people when they say they used to search up Moneybag 76 to see what videos I was putting out at the time, because I made a video asking people, please vote thumb up if you remember me as 73 only, and thumb down if you remember me as 76, something like that. And I had more people thumb down, I don't remember, up or down, whatever it was for 76. I had more people say they remember me as 76 than 73. I find that extremely odd. We're talking 300 people. Like 300.
You had more
like
people remember 70.
Yeah,
Oh my
we're
gosh.
330 will remember me as 76, and maybe 310 remember me as 73. I don't know the exact numbers right now. It's something like that, though. There's more 76 people. And I find that really odd. 300 people remember me as a different number. And they'll tell you, oh, my husband, he was born in 76, and I related that to you and your channel and your work. And, they have reasons why they thought I was 76. It's really bizarre.
Well, the key point here might be, when did they notice the change? Like, and of course it might be different times, but if there was a key moment, then that might perhaps dovetail with some event in your life. And I think that's what this question is delving into.
Yeah, I don't have any. Okay. I mean, I think it was like a couple years ago, I started getting comments almost daily. Did you change your name?
A couple years ago. Okay.
But yeah. I don't remember anything happening at that time that stands out as some major event in my life or anything like that.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left, guys. We're not going to be able to get to all of the questions. We have a panel coming up. Don't forget, keep those questions coming in. Okay, so next question we have up is Bill Knight. Could you equate the ego to higher selves lists to non-ME affected humans?
Well, I believe that list is for everyone, whether you're aware of it or your consciousness has expanded enough to be conscious of those choices. I think those are choices that we're all going to make. So that list is for everyone. It's for everyone who's experiencing the Mandela Effect and who's not. I think that's ultimately where we're headed. That's part of what this is, where we're going to be connecting with the higher self more as opposed to acting from the ego, which I think is more positive for everybody in the whole planet if everyone's doing that. So yeah, that list that I made, that's for everybody.
All right. And Eric Mill asks, until now, I believe ME just represented a shift marker. Now it seems some MEs are more meaningful. Are there messages for us from source within the effects?
Yeah, as the question earlier by AJ, I think you can find a lot of messages. I don't know if the changes that we're noticing are coming from source. I think they're coming from us, which might be the same thing. Us being connected as actually part of the source in the unity, collective consciousness. I don't know, kind of tossing words around here, but I think that it might be coming from us. I mean, if you take the time, a lot of people, they spend more time on that. I kind of spend more time on presenting information. But some people, they're not presenting it like I am. So they have more time to dive into what the actual connections are, what the meanings. There's a lot, especially if you look into the things where people are noticing in the Bible that their Bible's not the way they remember it to be. And, there's a lot of Bible changes. I mean, nothing's really changed because it's been that way for hundreds of years in the Bible. We're noticing, it's like our consciousness kind of shifting around. But yeah, there's a lot of, it seems like some of the changes have an agenda. But I'm not going to get into those specifically in the Bible, but yeah, definitely. There's definitely seem to be messages. But I think depending on where you are and your upbringing, and the information given to you by your parents and your pastor or your teachers, I think we're going to interpret those things in different ways. So I don't think there's just a set, here's the information, that we're presenting you and you're ready to see it, those of you who see it, and these are the messages. I don't really think it's just a set grouping of changes. I don't know. I think it can be different for different people, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha. And on that note, guys, I'm going to have to go ahead and thank Moneybags 73, Mr. Evan, for being here with us this afternoon. It is an absolute honor and a pleasure to have you here, my friend. Cynthia, thank you also for co-moderating this with me. I very much appreciate it.